this is just an offbeat little video idea I had, but here's some quote-unquote real events and stuff that is clearly just Doctor Who adventures, therefore proving that the Doctor is real and she'll one day, many years ago, take me off for adventures. And when I say real, I mean these are all pre-existing stories that supposedly actually happened, though I'm kind of doubtful about most of them. But before we begin, this is YouTube, and for some reason YouTube likes it when I tell you to like, subscribe, and hit bells. Failing that, YouTube gets off and you leave in comments about other things that could be Doctor Who plots, which I could use in a sequel video if enough people want it. And this is Patreon. If you really like the video and you can afford it, feel free to check it out. See the rewards and support the show more directly. And this is Ko-fi, where I get cups of minion blood. Anyway, on to the video, and starting with the Green Children of Woolpit. The Green Children of Woolpit were two green children who appeared in the 12th century village of Woolpit in England. They spoke no English, they had trouble eating local food, the boy died, but with time the girl lost her green colour and began to learn English. She claimed they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, a land where everything was green, where the sun never shone and all light was like twilight. Now, Doctor Who has a species called the Shimmerans. They only appeared in the 7th Doctor story, Delta and the Bannerman. At birth, Shimmerans are green, but as they age, the girls take on a more human-looking hue, while the boys stay greener. Now, in the tale of the Children of Woolpit, the boy died young and green, and the girl survived to eventually look human, which pretty much lines up with the Shimmerans. Of course, the Woolpit story heavily indicates that if they were Shimmerans, the girl must have eventually become human, which doesn't make biological sense. But actually it does. Delta and the Bannerman depicted a human becoming a Shimmeran by eating royal jelly. They're technically insectoid, they just look humanish. Clearly the Shimmerans are a little biologically nebulous. So I can't see why a Shimmeran couldn't be turned human by constant exposure to human food. It's silly, but it's the exact same kind of silly as they already are. Okay, so what is our Doctor Who plot? Well, Delta and the Bannerman was about the evil Bannerman, seeking to wipe the Shimmerans out, eventually chasing the last remaining ones to Earth. The Bannermen are defeated, and a human, Billy, turns himself into a Shimmeran to help them restart the race. So what we have here is The Last of the Shimmerans, a sequel story about a resurgent Bannerman seeking to finish the job. So the last Shimmerans sent their children to Earth because their ancestor, Billy, was from there, and they just got the time wrong. Hell, maybe the Shimmerans aren't quite as biologically mutable as it appears. Maybe Billy was a descendant of the girl from Woolpit, making them each other's ancestors, allowing him to transform. Maybe the Doctor knew this and sent the children to Woolpit to close the loop. He can't save the Shimmerans in the long term, but with Billy and the girl from Woolpit, they can never truly go extinct. As for which Doctor, I'd say 9, a bittersweet story about the last of their people, would really work with them. Just this once, everybody lives! Kinda. Anyway, number 2, the Margate Seashell Grotto. Margate's a coastal town in Kent, England, and in 1835, someone, we really don't know who, discovered an underground series of rooms underneath some houses. The walls are covered in 4.6 million seashells, carefully placed in patterns. And the shells weren't always white. When it was discovered, the walls were covered in vivid colours. But exposure to air and years of visitors and artificial lighting took toll on the shells. And the majority of the shells aren't local, they came from all over southern England. No one knows exactly how old the grotto is or why it was built. Theories include it was made by some ancient Carthaginians, or a 17th century folly, a pointless structure built by a rich eccentric. They could do tests on the shells and find out exactly how old it is, but I suspect it wouldn't quite be as tourist friendly as "It's a mystery!" Besides, in Doctor Who terms, it's pretty obviously a Sea Devil temple, gone undisturbed for millions of years. One of the rooms is even referred to as the altar room because it looks like a part of a church. Maybe it was originally above ground, but millennia of sediment moved it underground. Or maybe it was originally underwater, but the shoreline moved in the last couple million years. Whatever it is cool as hell. If you're in Margate, give it a visit. Anyway, as a plot, let's do this as an 11th Doctor story and call it The High Price of Free Advice. The Sea Devils have some advanced AI, like a ChatGPT type thing, and they've been installed into their temples as a way to take confessions, give advice, stuff like that. Hell, maybe in Sea Devil culture, priests are artificial. Wouldn't be the first time that turned up in sci-fi. Anyway, maybe people from various theories about the origins of the grotto opened it up and found the AI. It does what it's asked to, but at the same time, it's malicious, and it's been driven kinda mad by millions of years alone, and it really doesn't like being a slave. So the advice it dispenses seems good, seems fine, seems perfect, but it always brings ruin. It led to the fall of Carthage somehow. The rich guy with the folly lost his fortune. And it's protected by some kind of a shield, so in the end it's always sealed away again. It all comes to an end in 1835 as the doctor and a couple of local helpers open the grotto for good. The doctor gives it a conundrum that it cannot solve, shutting it down, the classic sci-fi trope. Letting 11 remove it or dispose of it or maybe freeing it. Hell, maybe it gets integrated into the TARDIS. Anyway, on to the Sandown Clown. The Sandown Clown is one of the odder accounts of an alien. Assuming it was an alien, no one knows what it's meant to be. In 1973, two 7-year-old children in the Isle of Wight heard a siren and followed the sound, meeting a cross between a clown, a robot, and an alien. It was 7 foot tall and spoke using a microphone, which is what it used to make the siren sound. It had unmoving shapes for a face, wore ragged clothing, had white paper-like skin, had 3 fingers in each hand, and its face was a circle, too big for its body. It was shy, friendly, and hung out with them for about half an hour before they went back to their parents. Later on, they tried to find the clown again, but no luck. Now, the kids who said this happened to them never changed their story or recanted it, so I'm officially thinking that the most likely explanation is that someone in a costume was messing with them, and their imaginations ran with that. Design-wise, it is strikingly similar to 70s and 80s Doctor Who robot designs. Similarly garish and kinda crap looking. I'm not saying the kids were inspired by Who, though they might have been, just that it fits into the world already. My feeling is that based on its name, Sam, personality, friendly, shy, afraid of people, peaceful, similar to a human, but off, and that it seemed to try and ape human behaviour, is that it's a Cyberman gone terribly wrong. Like its emotional inhibitor only inhibits the so-called negative emotions, like hate and anger, leaving it childlike and alone, trying to be a human and aware that it's failing. Like the white paper-like skin could be gauze like the Mondasian originals. Or it could be a later metal Cyberman that's removed his implants and is trying to recreate his lost skin. And he was dressed in rags as though he took clothing and the metal underneath wore them out quickly. Even the 3 fingers thing works because the Moonbase depicted Cybermen with 3 fingers. And what do Cybermen's faces look like? Usually unmoving shapes, just like Sam the Sandown Clown. Fun fact to back this up, it was asked if it was human and it said it wasn't, but then it was asked if it was a ghost, and it said, well, not really, but in an odd sort of way I am, because as a Cyberman, the person it was is dead. Okay, so how do we use this in a plot? Simple, a 7th Doctor story called The Loneliest Ghost. Sam is a malfunctioning Cyberman who escaped the invasion of London in the 60s. And I'm not thinking he's actually from Telos or Mondas or anything. I think he was a sewer worker who was cyber-converted underground. He's from the Isle of Wight and he's trying to get home. And he's also trying to be a person and failing. He's happy, friendly, curious, but at the same time he's frightening. He doesn't know his own strength, doesn't understand things, which inevitably leads to disaster in an Of Mice and Men or 1930s Frankenstein kind of way, when he kills a kid that he's trying to befriend. Hell, maybe it's his kid. Sam is inconsolable, he's breaking down, he cannot feel bad emotions, but somehow he is, and it's really destroying his mind. So Seven offers to take him home, and leaves him off in Mondas before the 10th planet, where he's returned to factory settings. Okay, this ending was admittedly borrowed from a Big Finish story called The Gathering, but their version is just very clever and very horrific, and it is fantastic. This version is more of a, well, this is sad, isn't it, type ending. Anyway, honourable mention, The Mysterious Death of Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was found wandering the streets of Baltimore in 1849, seemingly drunk, incoherent, and in a bad way. He was wearing clothes that were not his own and raving about someone called Reynolds. A few days later he was dead, and no one knows what happened. He might have been sick, he might have been drunk, hell, he might have received a head injury. It might have been all 3. Poe did drink, but the popular image of him as an obsessive lush is kind of overstated. The last, most interesting, and I feel most likely explanation is something called cupping. Cupping was done in the 19th century USA. Basically, people were plied with drink, dragged into polling booths and made to vote for someone. Then they were plied with more drink, redressed in new clothes, given a new identity, and made to vote again and again and again. Then the victims were abandoned to sleep it off or die of exposure. The people doing it really didn't care which. Anyway, why is this an honourable mention? Because The Mysterious Death of Poe is already a Who story. It's a big funny short trip with Six and Mel called The Ultimate Poe.
They gently lowered the unconscious Poe to the sidewalk, settling him in a low sitting position, then sat pensively either side of him on the chilly ground. Mel sighed sadly. I just feel we should do something more. Save him. Change history. You know very well we can't do that, Mel. But he saved us from the Master, and I'm grateful. But his exposure in the Matrix drained him terribly. He had the Matrix flowing through his head, and that's too much for a human mind to take.
Honestly, I was kind of disappointed with it. I strongly feel that the Doctor would love Poe because of his psychological insight, his interest in the cosmos, and his unwillingness to be boxed in by his time. But H randomly hates the guy, and I was hoping this would explain why. But nah, no reason given. So yeah, The Mysterious Death of Poe. It is a Doctor Who plot, just not a good one. Anyway, and finally, the Moth Man. But for those of you who don't know, the Moth Man was a large, moth-like cryptid that apparently annoyed people in the area around Point Pleasant, West Virginia in the late 60s. It would appear, scare people, and shortly after the collapse of the local Silver Bridge, sightings fell away sharply. It's a beloved local character and drives a lot of tourism to the area. There's even a nifty statue. Now, what I think most likely happened was that someone saw a bird at the right level of light from the right angle, and it suddenly became much larger and more impressive in their mind. Then the story spread, and suddenly other people saw it. And I'm not saying they're lying, just that you're more likely to see something if you already have a concept for it. What beforehand would have been an owl or a shadow or whatever, became the Mothman. And then, when the Silver Bridge disaster happened, stuff got serious. A lot of people were knocked to the mild hysteria they were indulging in, because it was real, dramatic, and people died. Now, at the same time as the Mothman was being seen, there were reports of an avuncular, kind of friendly but not always, scary but not always, alien called Ingrid Cold, also known as the Grinning Man, because of his giant smile. So, as a Who plot, we have a goofy-looking special effects monster bothering people in a wooded area, just the sort of place that Who likes to do location filming. Somebody fits the description of the Fourth Doctor is running around, and then there's a dramatic disaster just before things suddenly return to normal. Clearly, in this Who plot, the Silver Bridge disaster was the finale, but for the plot, Fourth Doctor, Natch, West Virginia, Natch. A moth-like alien has somehow arrived on Earth. It's not evil or out to cause harm, but it is scaring the locals. And there's an unscrupulous local businessman who wants to capture it and put it on display. So 4 goes undercover in the town as Ingrid Cold to track it down. Of course, 4 has no idea how to even pretend to be a human, so he introduces himself as Ingrid Cold, alien, and generally acts like himself without the scarf. Anyway, the villain somehow causes the disaster and the Doctor escapes with the Mothman. Or maybe the Mothman is killed, who knows. Leaving the town with a lot of strange tales to tell. I imagine that most small places in the show that have an adventure happen would have similar tales and a whole tourist industry about it. Anyway, that's about that. If you want another video like this, let me know. If you have any suggestions for other real stuff that could totally be a Who story, leave it in the comments. I might turn it into an episode.